Nathan Cross strode through the towering crystal gates of the Zyran Imperial Hall, his expression a mask of calm resolve. The air shimmered with alien bioluminescence, casting strange, flickering patterns across his tailored diplomatic attire. His presence was an anomaly among the gathered species. Humans were newcomers to galactic politics, barely tolerated by the elder races. Yet here he was, Earth's envoy, representing a planet dismissed as irrelevant and primitive. The hall buzzed with conversation in a cacophony of languages. Amphibious Calthries sloshed in their portable water tanks, communicating in deep croaks. Feathered Zalorians exchanged telepathic glances. Towering Yorka warriors, clad in ceremonial armor, loomed silently near the imperial dais. Nathan's arrival drew scattered glances, most filled with amusement or disdain. To the Galactic Empire, this human envoy was an entertaining footnote, not a serious contender in their grand games of power. Nathan's focus remained on the dais. Emperor Zoran, a serpentine figure of polished silver scales and golden eyes, reclined in a throne carved from obsidian. Beside him sat his advisors, figures of political cunning and military might. They whispered among themselves as Nathan approached. He could feel their judgment, their dismissal. But he wasn't here to earn their respect. Not yet. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, Nathan began, his voice cutting through the din with practiced clarity. I come on behalf of Earth, a world that seeks cooperation and mutual understanding. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed, reflecting the crystalline light. Human, he drawled, his voice resonant and disdainful. Your kind speaks of cooperation, yet your actions suggest desperation. What is it you truly seek? Nathan allowed a small, disarming smile to surface. Survival, the same as any species. But survival doesn't have to come at the cost of war. Humanity offers innovation, resilience, and partnership. Surely, these are qualities worth valuing. A ripple of laughter coursed through the hall. One of the advisors, a Yorka general with scars etched into his emerald skin, leaned forward. You speak of resilience, human, yet your kind barely survived its first contact with the stars. What value does prey offer to predators? Nathan's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened imperceptibly. He met the Yorka's gaze, unflinching. Prey evolves, General, often into something far more dangerous. The general's laughter faltered, replaced by a flicker of irritation. Emperor Zoran raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. Your words are bold, human, but words alone do not earn a place in this council. You must demonstrate your worth. Nathan inclined his head, the picture of humility. And what would you have of me, Your Excellency? The Emperor's gaze turned predatory, and the atmosphere in the hall shifted. Nathan felt the tension crackling in the air, but he betrayed no sign of unease. The Emperor's lips curled into a faint smile, exposing sharp ivory teeth. A test. To see if your kind truly possesses the strength you claim. Before Nathan could respond, a sudden movement caught his attention. Guards clad in reflective armor stepped forward, their weapons gleaming in the ambient light. The room seemed to constrict, the once distant laughter now an echo of foreboding. The attack came without warning. The first guard lunged, a blade arcing toward Nathan with lethal precision. He sidestepped effortlessly, the fabric of his coat whispering as it brushed past the blade. In the same motion, his hand snapped out, disarming the attacker with a brutal twist and sending the weapon skittering across the polished floor. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but Nathan's focus never wavered. Two more guards charged, their movements synchronized. Nathan ducked beneath a sweeping strike, his legs snapping out to trip one opponent, while his elbow connected with the second's jaw. The sickening crunch echoed in the stunned silence. He moved with practiced efficiency, each motion calculated and precise. To the onlookers, it was almost as if the human diplomat had transformed into a predator in their midst. By the time the last guard fell, clutching a dislocated arm and groaning in pain, Nathan stood alone, breathing steadily amid the wreckage. For a moment no one spoke. Then the Emperor leaned forward, his expression inscrutable. "Impressive," he murmured, his voice laden with curiosity. "Perhaps there is more to humanity than meets the eye." Nathan dusted off his sleeves, his calm demeanor unbroken. "I apologize for the commotion, Your Excellency. It seems there was a misunderstanding." The Emperor's lips curled into a smirk. "Indeed. Consider this your first lesson in galactic diplomacy, human. The weak do not bargain. They are consumed." Nathan's eyes flickered with something darker, a hint of the man behind the diplomat's mask. "Then it's fortunate Earth doesn't intend to be weak." Before the Emperor could respond, Nathan turned and began walking toward the exit, his steps measured and deliberate. The murmurs in the hall swelled behind him, speculation and unease rippling through the crowd. They had underestimated him, and he had made them aware of their mistake. As he passed the shattered remains of a guard's weapon, Nathan paused, crouching to pick up a small fragment. He examined it briefly before slipping it into his pocket. Then, without looking back, he disappeared through the crystalline gates, leaving the Empire to ponder the consequences of their arrogance. In the shadows beyond the hall, Nathan's calm facade finally cracked, replaced by the cold focus of a man on a mission. The encounter had been a test, not just for him, but for them. They thought they were predators, but they didn't know what true predators looked like. Not yet. The city sprawled beneath an endless alien sky, its structures towering like jagged shards of obsidian. Nathan Cross moved through the labyrinthine streets with an ease that belied the danger surrounding him. Every corner, every shadow, teemed with the Empire's soldiers, elite operatives bred for war, equipped with technology that could dissect a human with surgical precision. Yet, none of them saw him. Nathan was a ghost, gliding unseen through the corridors of their arrogance. The adrenaline pumping through his veins was familiar, almost comforting. He hadn't felt this alive in years. Diplomacy had been a mask he wore, but this was who he truly was. The thrill of the hunt, the calculated precision of each move, the cold certainty of death. It all defined him in a way no council chamber ever could. His first target was close. Governor Thress, an alien whose reputation for cruelty had earned him a seat on the Emperor's council, was stationed in a heavily fortified spire at the city center. Nathan had studied Thress's file during the long journey from Earth. He was a Zalorian, his feathers a brilliant orange that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. To the untrained eye, Thress appeared majestic, even regal. Nathan saw only a predator who reveled in breaking the weak. Reaching the base of the spire, Nathan slipped into a maintenance shaft, his movements fluid and silent. The Empire's security systems were state-of-the-art, but they had one fatal flaw. They were designed to thwart brute force, not ingenuity. Nathan's hands worked swiftly, bypassing sensors and rerouting circuits. His training had been relentless, his instructors drilling into him the art of exploiting the enemy's confidence. The Empire believed itself invincible, and that arrogance would be its undoing. Ascending through the spire, Nathan's mind drifted to the ghosts of his past. He remembered his earliest missions on Earth, eliminating warlords, dismantling cartels, silencing threats before they could reach his people. Each mission had been a step deeper into the abyss, a gradual shedding of anything resembling humanity. He didn't regret it. Regret was a luxury for those who lived safe, ordinary lives. For Nathan, survival had always been the only currency that mattered. He reached the governor's private quarters, his presence unnoticed by the guards stationed outside. Their discipline was impressive, but they were complacent, relying too heavily on technology to secure their charge. Nathan waited, his body still as stone, until the guards began their rotation. The moment they turned their backs, he struck. The first guard didn't have time to scream. Nathan's blade slid into the alien's throat with practiced ease, a sharp twist silencing him forever. The second guard fared no better, a precise blow to a vital nerve rendering him unconscious. Nathan caught the limp body before it hit the floor, lowering it gently to avoid detection. Efficiency was everything. Stepping into the governor's chamber, Nathan took in his surroundings. The room was a stark contrast to the brutalist architecture of the spire. Soft, organic shapes dominated the space, and the bioluminescent patterns on the walls pulsed in rhythm with Thress's slow breathing. The governor was seated at a curved desk, his attention fixed on a holographic display. Nathan moved closer, each step deliberate and silent. He could see the feathers on Thress's neck fluttering slightly, a sign of deep concentration. For a brief moment, Nathan considered the irony of the scene. This creature, so confident in his power, had no idea that death stood mere feet away. "Governor Thress," Nathan said, his voice a low, cold whisper. Thress jolted, his head snapping around to face the intruder. His bioluminescent feathers flared, their vibrant patterns a mix of alarm and defiance. "Who?" The governor's words were cut off as Nathan lunged, pinning him against the wall with a strength that belied his human frame. Thress struggled, his claws scraping against Nathan's arms, but the human's grip was unrelenting. "Do you know who I am?" Nathan asked, his voice devoid of emotion. Thress gasped, his breath shallow and rapid. "A fool," he spat, his defiance surfacing even in the face of death. "You think killing me will change anything? The Empire is eternal." Nathan's expression didn't change. "You misunderstand. This isn't about change. This is about consequences." With one swift motion, Nathan ended Thress's life, the alien struggle ceasing as his body went limp. He lowered the governor to the ground, his movements almost reverent. It wasn't personal. It never was. The room's security system finally detected the disturbance, alarms blaring to life. Nathan moved quickly, retrieving a data crystal from the governor's desk. The information it contained would guide him to his next target. As the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor, Nathan vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a scene of calculated devastation. The Empire's forces mobilized with ruthless efficiency. Nathan watched from a distance as soldiers flooded the spire, their movements precise and coordinated. He admired their discipline even as he planned their demise. For all their strength, they lacked adaptability. They followed orders without question, their rigid structure leaving them blind to someone who didn't play by their rules. As he navigated the city's underbelly, Nathan reflected on the game he was playing. This wasn't just a mission to eliminate the Empire's leaders. It was a lesson. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, its potential dismissed by those who considered themselves superior. Nathan intended to show them the cost of that arrogance. He reached the edge of the city, where the towering structures gave way to dense, alien forests. Here, he could disappear completely, regroup, and plan his next move. The night was quiet, the only sounds the distant hum of the city and the soft rustle of leaves. Nathan allowed himself a moment to breathe, his mind already calculating the steps ahead. The Empire would retaliate, of that he was certain. They would send their best to hunt him, to crush the rebellion they believed him to represent. It didn't matter. Nathan had faced worse odds before, and he had always emerged victorious. The game was far from over, and he intended to win. As he disappeared into the darkness, Nathan's thoughts turned to the Emperor. Zorn believed himself untouchable, a god among mortals. Nathan couldn't wait to prove him wrong. The Empire's response came swiftly, a storm of fire and fury that swept through the city like a razor-edged wind. Nathan watched from the shadows as waves of soldiers flooded the streets, their armor gleaming beneath the harsh glare of searchlights. Overhead, patrol drones crisscrossed the sky in precise formations, their sensors scanning for the faintest sign of him. He had expected nothing less. Governor Thress's death wasn't just a blow to the Empire's command. It was an insult, one the Emperor would not allow to go unanswered. Zorn was nothing if not predictable in his pride. But Nathan had counted on that. In the heart of the city, Commander Karan surveyed the chaos with cold, analytical eyes. The Yorka warrior was a living weapon, his massive frame clad in custom-forged battle armor that pulsed faintly with energy. Known for his brutal efficiency and unrelenting drive, Karan had been tasked with hunting the human down. To him, Nathan wasn't a man but a problem to be solved, a puzzle with only one outcome: death. "Lock down the perimeter," Karan ordered, his voice a deep, commanding growl. "I want every possible exit sealed. Double the patrols in the lower sectors." He's still here. His subordinates moved with precision, executing his commands without hesitation. Karan's reputation inspired both fear and loyalty, and he wielded it like a blade. He didn't doubt Nathan's skill. Thressa's death was proof enough of the human's lethality. But Karan had faced killers before. None had escaped him. Nathan moved through the shadows like smoke, his mind a whirlwind of calculations. Every step was a deliberate choice, every action part of a larger strategy. He had studied the Empire's tactics for years, understanding their strengths and weaknesses in equal measure. Their rigidity, their reliance on overwhelming force, was both their greatest asset and their fatal flaw. He slipped into an abandoned structure, its walls scorched from some long-forgotten battle. The faint hum of machinery told him it still had power, enough to serve his needs. Nathan reached into his coat and retrieved the data crystal he'd taken from Thressa's office. He slotted it into his portable console, the screen flickering to life with streams of alien text. The information was more than he'd hoped for. Locations, schedules, tactical reports, everything he needed to dismantle the Empire's leadership was here. Thressa's arrogance had been his undoing. He hadn't even bothered to encrypt the files properly. Nathan allowed himself a brief, grim smile. His moment of satisfaction was short-lived. The sound of boots on metal echoed through the building, growing louder with each passing second. They'd found him. Nathan shut down the console and slipped into the shadows, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. The soldiers moved cautiously, their weapons sweeping the room in coordinated arcs. Their armor was advanced, but it limited their peripheral vision, a flaw Nathan exploited with surgical precision. He struck from the darkness, his blade finding gaps in their armor with unerring accuracy. Each kill was quick and silent, the bodies crumpling to the floor without so much as a cry. By the time the last soldier fell, Nathan was already moving. He knew Karan would be close, and the commander was not someone to underestimate. Nathan had read the files on him, the battles he'd won, the enemies he'd crushed. Karan was more than a soldier. He was a hunter. Outside, the city was a cauldron of activity. Checkpoints had been established at every major intersection, and heavily armed patrols roamed the streets. Nathan slipped past them with practiced ease, his movements precise and deliberate. He wasn't just running. He was drawing them out, leading them into a carefully laid trap. Karan watched the chaos unfold from his command center, his expression unreadable. He could see the pattern in Nathan's movements, the deliberate nature of his strikes. The human wasn't just evading them. He was shaping the battlefield to his advantage. Clever, Karan murmured to himself. But not clever enough. He keyed a command into his console, and the holographic map of the city shifted. "Deploy the enforcers to Quadrant 7, he ordered. "He's hurting us, but he doesn't realize we're hurting him." Nathan reached the outskirts of the city, where the towering structures gave way to sprawling industrial zones. This was where he'd planned to make his stand. The maze of machinery and storage containers provided ample cover, and he'd spent hours memorizing the layout. Here, he would turn the Empire's strength against them. The first wave came swiftly, a dozen soldiers advancing in tight formation. Nathan struck from above, leaping from the shadows to incapacitate two of them before they even realized he was there. The others reacted with commendable speed, but Nathan was faster. He moved like a force of nature, his blade flashing in the dim light as he dismantled their ranks with brutal efficiency. The second wave was larger, more coordinated, but they fell just as quickly. Nathan's mind was a blur of calculations, each movement a precise response to the enemy's tactics. He used the environment to his advantage, drawing the soldiers into narrow corridors where their numbers counted for nothing. And then Karan arrived. The commander stepped into the fray with the confidence of a predator who knows he's at the top of the food chain. Nathan could see the intelligence in his eyes, the cold calculation that marked him as a true threat. This was no ordinary soldier. This was someone who had lived and breathed war. "You've caused quite the commotion, human," Karan said, his voice low and measured. "But it ends here." Nathan didn't respond. Words were meaningless now. He tightened his grip on his blade and moved, his attack swift and precise. Karan met him head-on, his movements a blur of speed and power. The clash of their weapons echoed through the industrial zone, a symphony of violence that drowned out the chaos around them. The fight was brutal, each combatant pushing the other to their limits. Nathan's agility and precision were matched by Karan's strength and resilience. They moved like shadows, their strikes too fast for the eye to follow. For a moment, it seemed like neither could gain the upper hand. But Nathan had spent years fighting enemies stronger and faster than him. He knew how to exploit weaknesses, how to turn an opponent's strength against them. With a feint and a well-placed strike, he disarmed Karan, his blade poised at the commander's throat. The Yorka glared at him, his expression a mix of anger and grudging respect. "You're better than I expected," Karan admitted. Nathan's voice was cold and unyielding. "Tell your emperor this is just the beginning." He struck the hilt of his blade against Karan's head, rendering him unconscious. The Empire's counterstrike had failed, but Nathan knew the real battle was still to come. As he disappeared into the night, his mind was already on the next move. The Emperor's palace loomed like a black monolith against the alien sky, its spires piercing the heavens. This was the heart of the Empire, the seat of Zoran's power, and Nathan Cross's final destination. Every step of his mission had led to this moment. He was no longer a diplomat, nor just an assassin. He was the culmination of humanity's rage, a living weapon forged in the fires of Earth's unyielding will. Nathan approached the palace under cover of darkness, his movements as silent as the grave. The defenses were formidable. Energy barriers, automated turrets, and legions of guards patrolling in strict formations. But Nathan had studied every inch of this fortress, every vulnerability and blind spot. He had a plan, and it relied on precision and timing. Scaling the outer wall, he disabled a series of motion sensors with deft fingers. His gear, though far less advanced than the Empire's technology, had one key advantage. It was designed to be invisible to their scans. He carried no energy-based weapons, no signal-emitting devices. Every tool he used was mechanical, analog, a throwback to an era the Empire had long since abandoned. Reaching a service hatch, he pried it open and slipped inside, entering the labyrinthine network of maintenance tunnels. The air was thick with the hum of machinery, the walls glowing faintly from conduits carrying power to the palace above. Nathan moved with purpose, every step calculated to bring him closer to Zoran. The Emperor was his ultimate target. Zoran's death would shatter the Empire's morale, plunging its hierarchy into chaos. But this was more than strategy. Nathan wanted Zoran to see him, to know that it was a human who had outmaneuvered and outmatched the might of the Empire. This was personal. Emerging into the palace's inner sanctum, Nathan found himself in a vast hall bathed in golden light. The walls were lined with statues of past emperors, their expressions carved into eternal scorn. At the far end, a set of massive doors guarded the throne room. 2 Yorka enforcers flanked the entrance, their hulking forms a testament to the Empire's obsession with power. Nathan observed them from the shadows, analyzing their movements. They were disciplined, their eyes scanning the hall with mechanical precision. He had seconds to act. A smoke capsule rolled silently across the floor, detonating in a hiss of gray mist. The guards reacted immediately, their weapons drawn, but Nathan was faster. In the haze, he struck with lethal efficiency, dropping them before they could raise an alarm. The throne room doors loomed before him. He pushed them open, his steps measured, his expression unreadable. Inside, the room was vast and ornate, its ceiling soaring high above. Zoran sat on his throne, a towering figure clad in ceremonial armor that gleamed with an otherworldly sheen. His eyes, dark and calculating, fixed on Nathan with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "So," Zoran said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "the infamous human assassin has come to face me. Tell me, what drives you? Vengeance? Glory? Or is this simply your nature?" Nathan stopped a few paces from the throne, his gaze unwavering. "You wanted to know what humanity is capable of. Consider this your answer." Zoran rose to his feet, his imposing frame casting a long shadow. "You're bold, I'll grant you that. But boldness without strength is meaningless." With a gesture, Zoran activated his personal guards. From the walls, hidden panels slid open, revealing a dozen heavily armed soldiers. Nathan's heart quickened, but he showed no fear. Instead, he reached into his coat and activated a small device. The lights flickered, the energy shields protecting the guards failing in a cascade of sparks. Zoran's expression darkened. "What have you done?" Nathan smirked. "Your palace isn't as secure as you thought. While you were busy chasing me across the city, I planted devices in your power grid. Your technology is impressive, but it relies too much on centralization." The guards charged, their weapons blazing, but Nathan was already in motion. He moved like a shadow, his blade flashing as he weaved through their ranks. The soldiers were skilled, but they lacked the adaptability that defined human combat. One by one they fell, until only Nathan and Zoran remained. The Emperor descended from his throne, his movements deliberate and menacing. He drew a massive blade, its edge crackling with energy. "You've come far," Zoran said. "But this is where your journey ends." Nathan didn't respond. Words were irrelevant now. He readied his own blade, its steel edge gleaming with a cold, lethal simplicity. The two warriors clashed, their strikes reverberating through the throne room like thunder. Zoran's strength was immense, each swing of his blade a devastating arc of power. But Nathan was faster, his movements precise and unpredictable. The battle raged, neither combatant yielding an inch. Zoran's armor absorbed the worst of Nathan's strikes, but the Emperor was slowing. Nathan's agility and endurance were wearing him down, each attack chipping away at his defenses. Finally, Nathan saw his opening. With a feint and a lightning-fast strike, he drove his blade into a gap in Zoran's armor. The Emperor staggered, blood seeping from the wound. He fell to one knee, his grip on his weapon faltering. "You cannot defeat the Empire," Zoran rasped, his voice filled with defiance. Nathan stood over him, his blade poised for the final blow. The Empire was doomed the moment it underestimated humanity. With a swift motion, he ended it. Zoran slumped to the ground, lifeless. The throne room fell silent, the weight of the moment settling over Nathan like a shroud. He knew the Empire would not collapse overnight. There would be others to rise and take Zoran's place. But this was a beginning, a message to every alien power that humanity was no longer prey. Nathan stepped over the Emperor's body and moved toward the exit. The mission was complete, but his work was far from over. He vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a legacy that would echo across the galaxy.